On April 21, 2026, the world watched with bated breath as a fragile US-Iran ceasefire was extended. The announcement was met with cautious optimism, as millions hoped this would mark the beginning of a new chapter in the long and turbulent relationship between Washington and Tehran. Newsrooms from New York to Tehran buzzed with speculation, and world leaders gathered to monitor the unfolding events, aware that the stakes could not be higher. Yet paradoxically, President Trump announced that the U.S. naval blockade of Iran would not only continue, but would actually intensify. Warships maintained their positions in the Persian Gulf, and the Strait of Hormuz remained tightly controlled, sending a clear message that military pressure was far from over. The move, urged by Pakistani mediators who hoped to keep diplomatic channels open, was intended to create space for negotiation. But instead, it deepened the crisis, as both sides dug in their heels. Islamabad's efforts to broker trust were met with suspicion and frustration, as the world watched the diplomatic chess game unfold. The Trump administration's strategy was clear: halt the shooting but squeeze Iran's economy to force concessions at the negotiating table. Oil tankers sat idle at sea, and sanctions tightened their grip, choking off vital resources and sending shockwaves through Iran's already struggling economy. Trump bluntly declared the blockade would remain until, in his words, "our transaction with Iran is 100% complete." The message was unmistakable. Economic pressure would be relentless until American demands were met. For Iran, this was no peace. Tehran's leaders condemned the blockade as a violation of the ceasefire and an act of war in disguise. Protests erupted in the streets, and Iranian officials accused the U.S. of using economic warfare to achieve what military force could not. Iran's demand was unambiguous: lift the blockade before any real negotiations could begin. Without relief, Tehran insisted, talks would be nothing more than empty gestures. The world now faces a tense and precarious standoff. Military silence prevails, but economic warfare tightens its grip with each passing day. Oil exports have plummeted, businesses shutter, and ordinary Iranians feel the squeeze as the blockade's effects ripple through daily life. The U.S. offers an olive branch with one hand, an economic cudgel with the other, leaving the region on edge and the world uncertain about what comes next. Diplomats shuttle between capitals, but trust is in short supply. Will this high-stakes strategy lead to a diplomatic breakthrough or a devastating breakdown? The answer for now hangs in the balance. A naval blockade is a form of economic warfare. Warships encircle Iran's coast, creating an invisible wall that stretches for hundreds of miles. This show of force is not just about military might, it's a calculated move to squeeze Iran's economy and pressure its government. By cutting off trade, supplies, and especially oil exports, the blockade aims to choke off Iran's most vital economic lifelines. Oil tankers, once the lifeblood of the region, now sit idle at sea, unable to move past the cordon of warships. The U.S. Navy enforces a high-tech cordon in the Persian Gulf, using advanced surveillance and intelligence to monitor every vessel. Ships suspected of trading with Iran are stopped, boarded, and thoroughly inspected, sometimes for hours, as crews wait anxiously for clearance. Vessels caught violating the blockade are seized, their crews detained and cargo confiscated. These actions fuel Iranian accusations of piracy and inflame tensions on the high seas, with confrontations sometimes erupting between naval forces and desperate sailors. Legally, a blockade is considered an act of war, making its enforcement during a ceasefire especially provocative. Diplomats scramble to negotiate, but every intercepted ship adds to the diplomatic strain, raising the risk of open conflict. The U.S. claims the blockade is necessary to curb Iran's nuclear ambitions and limit its regional influence. Yet many nations at the United Nations see it as a dangerous escalation, warning that such measures could spiral into a broader crisis. For shipping companies, the Persian Gulf has become a high-risk zone. Insurance costs skyrocket as the threat of seizure or attack looms over every voyage. Shipping executives and insurers scramble to assess the risks, knowing that a single incident could cost millions. Many shipping lines now reroute their vessels, taking longer and more expensive journeys around the Arabian Peninsula to avoid the Strait of Hormuz. The once busy shipping lanes are eerily quiet, as captains choose safety over speed. The blockade's impact ripples outward, disrupting global supply chains and causing delays in deliveries worldwide. It's not just Iran's economy that suffers. Consumers in distant countries find empty shelves and rising prices as goods are delayed or rerouted. The blockade is a net cast over one of the world's most vital waterways, ensnaring commerce and trade on a global scale. Every day, billions of dollars in goods are at stake, and the world watches anxiously as the crisis unfolds. The blockade's reach extends far beyond Washington and Tehran, sending shockwaves through world capitals and financial markets. Investors react to every headline, and governments scramble to protect their economies from the fallout. In this modern siege, the world's economy is caught in the crossfire, reminding us that in today's interconnected world, the consequences of conflict can be felt in every corner of the globe. Washington sees the blockade as leverage, a way to force Iran to the table without war. Trump's team claims Iran is collapsing financially, painting the blockade as a success. For the US, the ceasefire is a chance for Iran to capitulate. The blockade is the pressure that makes talks possible. Tehran sees it differently. The blockade is economic warfare, a humiliation, and a violation of sovereignty. Iran's leaders vow resistance, calling on the UN to condemn US actions as piracy. Negotiating under blockade is unthinkable for Iran. It would mean surrendering dignity. The Revolutionary Guards warn neighbors not to aid attacks on Iran. This deadlock, blockade as leverage versus act of war, threatens to shatter the truce. The Strait of Hormuz is the world's oil choke point. 1/5 of global crude passes through daily. Any disruption here sends shockwaves through the global economy, spiking prices and rattling markets. Recent attacks nearly closed the strait, but Iran's partial reopening brought brief relief. Yet, the US blockade keeps the region on edge. Commercial ships move, but under heavy military watch. Any incident could spiral, threatening this vital artery. Iran's threats to close the strait remind the world of its asymmetric power. The UK and France lead efforts to protect shipping, knowing a closure would be catastrophic. The strait is the jugular vein of global energy. Its security is everyone's concern. The world's economy hangs in the balance. Lebanon, home to Hezbollah, feels the US-Iran crisis most acutely. A shaky ceasefire with Israel is repeatedly violated. Hezbollah fires rockets, Israel strikes back. Israel's new doctrine, zero tolerance, with a buffer zone inside Lebanon until Hezbollah disarms. Lebanon's government is powerless. Hezbollah opposes talks, acting independently. The blockade on Iran squeezes Hezbollah's resources, weakening its long-term capacity. War has devastated southern Lebanon, deepening political divisions and humanitarian crisis. Hezbollah is trapped, pressured by Iran, battered by Israel, and isolated at home. Its defiance risks dragging Lebanon into wider conflict. The border remains a flashpoint, threatening to ignite the region. The blockade's real victims are ordinary people, families, workers, and children whose daily lives have been upended. Behind every headline and statistic are countless stories of hardship and resilience, as people struggle to adapt to a new reality shaped by forces far beyond their control. Economic warfare means lost jobs, shuttered businesses, and shortages. Once bustling markets now stand silent, and skilled workers find themselves without purpose or pay. The ripple effects reach every corner of society, from small shopkeepers to large manufacturers, leaving communities fractured and uncertain about the future. The IMF predicts Iran's economy will shrink by 6%, Iraq's by 7%, Qatar's by 9%. These numbers represent more than just economic downturns. They signal a deepening crisis that threatens the stability of entire nations, undermining hopes for recovery and growth. In Iran, sanctions and blockade mean empty shelves and medicine shortages. Civilians bear the brunt. Parents search desperately for basic necessities, while hospitals struggle to provide care with dwindling supplies. The most vulnerable, children, the elderly, and the sick, are hit hardest. Lebanon faces a humanitarian catastrophe, over 2,400 killed, 1.2 million displaced, and families forced to abandon their homes. Aid lines stretch for blocks, and makeshift shelters have become the only refuge for thousands. Southern infrastructure lies in ruins, with roads, bridges, and power lines destroyed. The destruction has cut off communities, making it nearly impossible to deliver aid or rebuild. The country's pre-existing economic collapse is now a full-blown crisis. Banks remain shuttered, the currency plummets, and public anger grows as savings vanish and hope fades. International aid is a stopgap. It offers temporary relief, but cannot address the root causes or rebuild shattered lives. Relief organizations work tirelessly, but the scale of need far outpaces available resources. True recovery will take billions and political stability that seems out of reach. Without lasting peace and effective governance, reconstruction efforts remain stalled and uncertain. For millions, the conflict is not abstract. It's daily hardship, lost homes, and stolen futures. Children grow up surrounded by destruction, and parents face impossible choices just to survive. The strategic games of world powers have left a trail of devastation. Political maneuvering and international rivalries have real, devastating consequences for those caught in the crossfire. The region's suffering is a warning of what's at stake. Each loss, each injury, is a reminder of the urgent need for solutions that prioritize human lives over political interests. The human cost is mounting, with grief and trauma spreading through communities. Hospitals overflow, and cemeteries fill as the toll continues to rise. With no end in sight, the region stands at a crossroads, its future uncertain, its people enduring hardship with courage and hope for a better tomorrow. As tensions rise, diplomacy scrambles to keep the peace. Pakistan mediates US-Iran talks, extending the ceasefire and hosting delicate negotiations. Meanwhile, Trump invites Israeli and Lebanese leaders to Washington, hoping to formalize a shaky truce and address Hezbollah's disarmament, but Lebanon's government can't control Hezbollah, making a deal elusive. Europe, wary of US unilateralism, launches its own de-escalation efforts, focused on protecting shipping and upholding international law. The UK and France lead a multinational mission to safeguard the Strait of Hormuz, excluding the US. This split reveals a growing rift: US maximum pressure versus European multilateralism. The world's powers are pulling in different directions, all seeking a fragile peace. The crisis threatens global shipping, especially oil through the Strait of Hormuz. Europe leads a new mission to protect commercial vessels, separate from the US blockade. Over 30 nations plan naval escorts, surveillance, and intelligence sharing to deter attacks. The US, focused on enforcing sanctions, is absent from this effort. Europe's goal: keep trade flowing, regardless of the US-Iran standoff. The memory of past disruptions drives urgency. Economic stability depends on secure shipping. This mission is insurance against chaos, a practical response to political gridlock. While strategies differ, the world agrees, the strait must stay open. The Middle East crisis is a global drama. Ceasefire, blockade, proxy wars, and frantic diplomacy. The stakes: international security, the world economy, and the future of global alliances. One misstep could ignite a conflict with worldwide consequences. The US pursues unilateral pressure. Europe champions multilateral law. The outcome will shape how future crises are handled. The world watches because its prosperity and security are on the line. The coming weeks will decide whether this is a turning point or the prelude to disaster.